Teenagers are crazy. For most of them, this term is metaphorical, but in today's instance, these teenagers are actually insane and get life sentences for horrific crimes.
All right. Hey, all persons having anything to do before the Honorable Helen Kensington, Justice of the Superior Court now sitting in Salem within and for this county of Essex, draw near, give your attendance, and you shall be heard. God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. This court is now open. Be seated.
First up, we have Matthew Borges. Now, he was in court for beheading a fellow classmate. Yes, a teenager is capable of doing such. It was truly a horrific incident, but Matthew did get what he deserved in the end. Here's what the judge had to say on the matter, as well as his sentencing.
As a juvenile, mandates that where the defendant was convicted of murder in the first degree with extreme atrocity and cruelty, that the court set a minimum term of 30 years and a maximum term of life, that the parole eligibility being the 30 years, and that in the context of a conviction of murder in the first degree with deliberate premeditation, that the court set a minimum term of imprisonment of 25 years. The minimum should be 25 years to 30 years, and the maximum should be life. So with regard to the theory of extreme atrocity and cruelty, the court will impose a sentence of 30 years to life as required by the statute. With regard to the murder in the first degree with deliberate premeditation, I've taken into consideration the pre-sentence report that was prepared for the court. I've read it carefully with all the documentation. Mr. Borges, you have shown that you have pursued your education in the last few years. That's admirable. You've shown that you want to be a good person as you can under the circumstances, and I hope you continue that. But I think that under all of the circumstances, that's an appropriate sentence.
The sentence be imposed, Your Honor.
Yeah.
The sentence be imposed, Your Honor.
Yes.
Mr. Borges, will you stand, sir? Matthew Borges, on indictment number 2017-115, the jury, having returned a verdict of guilty on the charge of murder in the first degree on the theories of deliberate premeditation and extreme atrocity and cruelty, you will hearken to the sentence the court has awarded against you. The court, having duly considered your offense, it is ordered by the court that you be punished by confinement for a term of life with parole eligibility on the theory of extreme atrocity and cruelty at 30 years and parole eligibility on the theory of deliberate premeditation at 30 years to run concurrent, and that this sentence is to be executed upon you in and within the precincts of the Massachusetts Correctional Institution at Cedar Junction.
For someone to be so emotionless when hearing that they're not going to get out of prison for life, he truly is a monster.
I can't give you any insight to all these people that went out and did all these mass shootings, because at least in my mind, it's not really the same thing. To me, it was just like a numbness at the time. You know what I mean? And I couldn't really, at 15, I couldn't really comprehend the consequence. Or I knew what I was doing was wrong, but I couldn't really comprehend that the finality of the wrongness.
Next, we have Andrew Williams. He had started a school shooting back in 2001. His master plan was to end his life with the cops firing at him. Unfortunately for him, that did not go as planned. Fortunately for the victims' families, he got what he deserved. Andrew had received a life sentence at the age of 16, and this is what he said in a recent interview on his case.
In cold blood, now the Santana High School killer is asking to be set free.
And 10 News reporter Anthony Pura is live in Santee, where there's a strong outcry from his victims tonight. Anthony?
Well, it is definitely upsetting news to them. That shooting that happened on this campus back in 2001 changed so many lives. And victims tell me, even though that request has not been granted tonight, it is just the thought of it that is extremely troubling to them. This is the most recent picture of Charles Andrew Williams, taken inside Valley State Prison. Andy Williams went away August 2002 after he killed 2 classmates and injured 13 others in 2001. Barry Gibson, who was a senior at Santana High School at the time, was shot in the thigh.
I was very forgiving when this happened, more so than maybe I should have been.
Gibson now lives in Arizona. He spoke with us via FaceTime after learning Williams has petitioned Governor Jerry Brown to commute his sentence. It comes after Brown signed a bill earlier this year that prohibits prosecutors from trying defendants under 16 years old as adults.
But even if he was tried as an adult when he was 16, that new law only came out years after he got his life sentence.
There would be no mother-daughter chat that Tuesday afternoon. While Colleen's mother waited for her loving daughter, the defendant violently raped Colleen Ritzer. He viciously, brutally, and senselessly attacked Colleen in the girls' bathroom, just feet from the classroom, where she was in her second year of living her dream of being a teacher. When the defendant was finished in the bathroom, he put Colleen Ritzer inside a recycle bin, wheeled her to the woods.
Up next, we have Philip Chisholm. Now, he's no normal teen, to say the least. He did things so unthinkable that the jury gave him a massive amount of time behind bars.
This inexact process is central to the maintenance of our social compact and part of the core of the concept of ordered liberty. This court will impose the mandatory life sentence for the murder of Colleen Ritzer and set a parole eligibility date of 25 years, the highest level our law allows. This court will impose a concurrent sentence of 40 years to 40 years and 1 day for the rape of Colleen Ritzer and a concurrent sentence of 40 years to 40 years and 1 day for the armed robbery. In imposing a sentence for the rape at a date in excess of the parole eligibility date for the murder, the court is not suggesting that the rape, as heinous as it was more egregious than the murder. Rather, this court is constitutionally obligated to set a parole date no more than 25 years for her murder. While Colleen Ritzer's rape and murder were inextricably intertwined, this court may not punish the defendant with more prison time for the rape than justice demands for the purposes of avoiding constitutional limitations imposed by our Massachusetts Declaration of Rights as interpreted by a Supreme Judicial Court for the murder committed by a juvenile. Sentence may be imposed.
Philip got a total of 40 years to life in prison for the murder and sexual assault of his high school teacher.
He outlined a plan to stalk, rape, torture, and ultimately kill a female classmate. He expressed delight in torturing a family of baby birds. And he wrote about the joy he received in listening to them squeal as he killed them.
That was the doing of Ethan Crumbley, only that is not the plan he went through with. Ethan was in court that day because of a school shooting he was responsible for. The details are grisly, but Crumbley gets what's coming for him.
In his journal, he described the type of gun he needed, who his first victim would be, and ultimately he expressed that he would surrender so that he could witness the pain and suffering that he caused.
A mindset, they say, of a menace to other juveniles who would not be safe, housed with the 15-year-old in Children's Village. Right now, Crumbley spends most of his time in a cement cell with a few items from the commissary and a glass door so he can be monitored 24/7.
Staff a deputy directly in front of that inmate to ensure that the inmate's not hurting themselves.
This extreme isolation is actually not beneficial whatsoever and actually harms Mr. Crumbley.
While the prosecution painted an image of a narcissistic, troubled teen,
his request that how do I get my fan mail, my hate mail, and my commissary? He knows that he's going to have people who admire him and people who hate him alike, and he wants that notoriety.
And now for his plea.
He needs more human contact, especially with other juveniles at Children's Village. She says staffing and mental health resources are a big concern.
This was a devastating situation, and we don't know what the defendant's presence on our campus, in the classrooms, on the units, what that presence, how that may trigger or impact other young people. I would also be concerned about his safety. I do not know if he would be a target. I do not know if his presence in a juvenile facility would cause him to experience any type of trauma.
He ended up getting a life sentence with no possible chance of parole.
You're a monster and deserve to rot in jail for lifetimes for what you did to my son, who was harmless, decent young man that was raised with lots of love and respect. I don't know about your upbringing, nor do I care, because you violated our home and trespassed uninvited when you should have been in your home, not ours, taking the life of my child.
Next up, we have Conrad Shafer. He was responsible for murdering 2 teenage boys in cold blood. This is how his court proceeding went.
Court paid court costs of $415 and $100 cost of prosecution and $100 counsel name application fee. Is there anything further?
Yes, Your Honor. You have indicated that the 25-year hearing there'd be a possibility of a hearing. I would ask that the order reflect that he's entitled to a hearing. I believe
the law doesn't.
That entitled would be a better word. And also I would ask that it be clear that even though the sentences are consecutive, the 25-year hearing would be as to both.
That was part of the plea agreement.
Yes, because that area of the law was in flux, we decided just to agree that both sentences can be reviewed in 25 years.
So we'll indicate that both judgments and sentences will be left for the
Nothing further.
Mr. Shafer, you have 30 days within which you can appeal the judgments and sentences that just entered in your cases. If you wish to appeal and you're unable to afford to hire a lawyer, I will appoint one to represent you. If you do not file an appeal within 30 days of today's date, you waive your right to appeal. Understand, sir?
He received a life sentence for each teenager he murdered.
It should never happen again. So the 2 factors that apply to you, in my opinion, from the factors defined by the legislature are punishment and deterrence.
That was the judge speaking to Devin Erickson. He had executed a mass shooting at his school. It was so bad that he had gotten charged with 40 counts of murder.
Count 4, attempted first-degree murder after deliberation for Lucas Albertoni, 48 years in the Department of Corrections, to run consecutive to counts 1, 2, and 3. Count 5, attempted first-degree murder after deliberation, attempting the murder of Joshua Jones, 48 years in the Department of Corrections, to run consecutive to counts 1 through 4. Count 6, attempted murder of Mitchell Krause after deliberation, 48 years, Department of Corrections, consecutive to counts 1 through 5. Corrections to run concurrent with count 41. Count 43, conspiracy to commit theft, 1 year, consecutive. Count 44, conspiracy to commit burglary, 1 year, concurrent. Count 45, interference with school staff, 6 months in the county jail, credit for time served. Count 46, reckless endangerment, 6 months county jail, credit for time served. I obviously disagree with the idea that imposing a sentence that may seem academic is a waste of time. There's reasons. I hope that I have given those reasons. And by giving those reasons, I hope that it accomplishes the goal set out by the legislature and my intentions today, which is to make sure that this never happens again. Mr. Brockler, anything you think I missed or anything you'd like to change or add?
No, Your Honor. I know there's one more matter regarding restitution. If I could have just 1 second.
I see that was filed. Is there an objection to restitution?
He was charged with 46 different murders and some robberies with regards to the gun. He got life in prison without parole plus 1,200 years in prison.